What is up, everybody? It is Sunday night, and we are reacting to the 49ers loss to the. Sorry about that. We are reacting to the 49ers loss to the Atlanta Falcons 28-14 on the road. There were obviously a few key injuries, as well as just a few things that happened that maybe were disappointing, some things that are disconcerting. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think this loss really affects the 49ers a lot. I'm going to get into all of that. I also have a new format on how I'm going to do this post game reaction. Usually, I just give you my thoughts immediately, and oftentimes they're very discombobulated. And I myself don't think that that's the best reaction I can provide. So I'm trying something new where I've taken a little bit of time. I've gone back. I've tried to watch a little bit of the game, how much ever I can catch. And I'm going to give you my thoughts in three pieces. I'm going to give you my thoughts on the offense. I'm going to give you my thoughts on the defense. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on Kyle Shanahan after the game. So let's start with the 49ers offense, right? To only score 20 or 14 points, excuse me, against a defense with the Falcons that, isn't the best unit. Their front in terms of their ability to put pressure on the passer outside of Grady Jarrett, I don't think there's a very special player there. They have that rookie from Penn State, Arnold Ebiketie, but he didn't make a massive impact in this game. The Atlanta secondary, AJ Terrell is a terrific player. Richie Grant's an ascending player, but it is very young. There's not many players that you would write home and say are stars. And that secondary, a lot of guys got hurt today at corner. So starting off, right, scoring 14 points against a defense that I don't think any of us look at and say that's a great defense is not a good look for the 49ers offense. When you really dig into what are the things they did well, what are the things they didn't do well, they actually pass protected very well. Now, some of those things had to do with Atlanta's front, but I thought they pass protected well for the majority of the game, especially given the fact that this offensive line was revolving door, right? You had to start the game with your third string offensive tackle because of the injuries to Trent Williams, the injuries to Colton McKivitz. You have to start with Jalen Moore. Then you have, of course, Brunskill and Burford already rotating. Then McGlinchey gets hurt. You move Blake Hands to right tackle, and then you have Brunskill at right guard. And then that's not exactly working out. So ultimately, you finish the game with Brunskill starting at right tackle and Burford playing inside at guard. So given all of the movement, the shifting, the guys that had to play different spots, I thought the offensive line played pretty well. The receivers, right? The weapons. Brandon Ayuk had a phenomenal game. If anybody heard me preview this game with Larry Krueger, I think I previewed it, I want to say on Wednesday. I previewed it on Wednesday, excuse me. Some of the topics that we'll discuss with the Niners defense were prevalent there. But Larry and I talked about how, Brandon Ayuk is yet to have that breakout game, even though he shows that much potential. He finally had it. He was awesome in this game. The little return route, it's a whip route. They call it a return route in the Shanahan offense. That route on AJ Terrell, who's a terrific player. First of all, it was amazing scheming from Shanahan to be able to get that matchup and be able to have Ayuk to run that route against pure man coverage and positive leverage. But then it was also a nasty route from Ayuk, and then great explosion after the catch. Good throw from Garoppolo. Ayuk had a great game. George Kittle had a good game. He blocked very well. He had a good game receiving, though I do think the 8 catches for 88 yards is a little bit, well, he got his production once the game was over. And then Deebo Samuel had a really solid bounce back game. So Niners weapons played well. I thought Garoppolo played well in this game for the most part. Some of the drops, right? You go with the Warner drop, the Ray McLeod drop. Those were big time throws that he made that were drops. And then the Brendel holding on another really, really good throw down the field to Ayuk. He missed one to Ayuk where he had him wide open on that post and he left the ball a little short and the corner was able to recover and make a play. I thought that his first interception to Deebo Samuel wasn't a great throw, was a pretty bad play, but end of the half, there isn't really a lot to lose there. The Niners were kind of, 9 seconds around midfield, so they weren't in field goal range. You take a shot, you take an opportunity, maybe something happens, but that interception really didn't affect, to me, the outcome. The second one was a bad play, but again, I thought he played really, really well. That was the one like kind of throw that got away from him that he really threw into tight coverage. And unfortunately, it was an interception. So when we're expecting what we expect Garoppolo to do, if he plays like this, typically the Niners win games, right? The issue for the offense is once they fell behind early, they weren't able to get consistency in terms of being able to run the ball. There was a lot on the pass game, and they were just killing themselves with mistakes, right? Holding penalties, drops on big plays. It was just offensive execution errors. Now, we do need to talk about why, and I think we'll talk about that with the Shanahan section of this. This issue with offensive execution seems to be a problem with this team over the last 2 years early in the season with Garoppolo. And it's actually a very confusing problem because we're talking about an offense with extreme continuity, right? You're talking about continuity at quarterback, a guy who started for this offense and played for this team for 5 years. Continuity in terms of the weapons. Ayuk has been here for 3 years. Samuel has been here for 4 years. Kittle has been here for 5 or 6 years. Juszczyk has been here for a long time. Shanahan has been, had continuity in terms of his coaching staff too. Bobby Turner, Chris Forrester, these guys have kind of remained. Of course, they lost Mike McDaniel, but Bobby Slowick, all these guys have been there. So when you're talking about having this much continuity, the execution shouldn't be this much of an issue. And I think it might be I don't know if it's a Shanahan problem. I cannot answer this question as to why, but it is something that shouldn't exist when you have a play caller, a coach. I mean, how many other coaching offensive play callers where we've seen an offensive play caller quarterback combination where they're 6 years in and they have inconsistency in terms of just their rhythm week to week. In some games they play really well together. Some games they don't look like they're in sync. Some games the quarterback doesn't look I don't know why this is happening. I don't know what the issue is because we've also seen them do it right. Like there were stretches of games. 2019, they did it right. Last year, once they started 3-5, we saw a real rhythm, a real identity, a real way they wanted to play offense. I don't know what the issue is early in the season. I don't know why it takes so long in each season for these guys to get a rhythm together when they've coached and played together for so long. And I think that's really the one disconcerting takeaway for me about the 49ers offense, right? Because they're a good unit. They have a lot of talent. We know those two things, right? We know they're going to get healthier. The offensive line is going to get healthier. They're going to get better because Banks is going to play more, and Banks has looked good. And Burford's going to play more, and Burford has looked okay. And then, maybe Brendel will eventually start to pick it up and get more comfortable and play better. So with all of those things, right, we expect them to improve. It's just, and, it was a bad matchup with Atlanta. It's a one-off game. The Niners are still first in the NFC West. All these things are true, but what really is disconcerting to me when you ask me if there's one thing that bothers me, it's the fact that there's this much continuity. There's a coaching staff, there's a players that have played together that have had this much success together, and they're having issues against bad teams finding a rhythm, right? I would understand if it was like the defense where every starter just is getting hurt, backups are getting hurt. It's kind of the case with the offensive line, but the offensive line wasn't that much of an issue today, besides a few boneheaded penalties, especially from Brendel on a big play to Ayuk, where he just got, I don't know what he was doing. He got trucked. I don't know what he did to hinder him, but they call that a penalty. That was not a good penalty, but either way, that's the one thing that I look at from this game. I go, well, why are these issues? Because I see Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, right? They're the best of the best. You don't want to compare to that, but they're not having these same issues, right? I guess you could say these issues exist in Green Bay, but they're trying to work with a totally new receiving core. They're having massive issues in their offensive line. The Niners don't have as many issues on their roster as much as them. So overall, I didn't think the Niners offense played that bad, even though 14 points against Atlanta is not the best showing. But I am concerned about their inability to find a rhythm despite playing together for so long, where they really have a comfortability and an identity. I think once the game got away from them and then they made it 14-14 and Atlanta scored again immediately on that drive to make it 21-14, it felt like the Niners offense lost their grip and they could never really control the football game. It felt like Atlanta, drive on drive, their offense and their run game really started to wear. And so that would bring us to a great segue, right? Because we're talking about Atlanta's offense in comparison to the Niners offense. And let's talk about the 49ers defense. First of all, I thought they played very well for a group that was missing so many key pieces, right? They're missing their best player, Nick Bosa. He's the defensive player of the year in the NFL so far. He's a superstar. Eric Armstead's a stud. They're missing him. Javon Kinlaw is a huge body that would have made a big difference in a game like this against Atlanta, an offensive line with a lot of size, a lot of first rounders. It gives you Javon Kinlaw's size makes an impact in the run game today. They didn't have him, right? And then Azeez Al-Shaair, a very good linebacker, he's out. Samson Ebukam, he is battling his butt off through that Achilles. He is on the ground, exhausted, looking like, oh no, where's Samson Ebukam going to go? And then he just comes back and he hits another quality rush after another quality rush. So, but he's also banged up. And then you go to the secondary, right? Emmanuel Mosley tore his ACL, and now Travarius Ward hurt his groin. We don't know how long he's going to be out, but that's another massive loss. So given all of that, and given that they were playing an offense, and again, I don't know if anybody was able to catch the preview show I did with Larry Krueger. The only reason I bring it up is to say that I was talking about a few of these things before the game with Atlanta's run game, Atlanta's offensive line, the Niners front seven being banged up. And being banged up has two issues, right? One, you miss the talent of Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead, right? But two, when you have Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, it's a fully healthy rotation. Everybody stays fresh because you go 9 deep and all 9 guys are terrific, right? Because like your 6th man in that rotation or 5th man is Charles Omenihu, and Charles Omenihu is top 10 in the NFL in pass rush win rate. He's outstanding. Kevin Givens is a terrific player, and he's like your 7th man in that rotation. Ridgeway is also a good player. So when you go down the list, you're able to do that, right? You're able to stay fresh, and everybody's able to stay fresh in a fresh defensive line against a run game, right? You run the ball to wear a defensive line out. That's what happened to the Niners defensive line, right? Lack of depth, people banged up, all backups are playing. They just got banged up because the Falcons are a terrific running team. They were 3rd in the league in rushing. They run the ball about for 165 yards a game. They stayed right on tune with that for running for 168 yards in this game. We knew they were going to run the ball. It was something I talked about. It was a reason I was concerned about the 49ers in this matchup because Atlanta's a very good run team. And they ran the ball really, really well. And so from that standpoint, I thought the Niners defense played okay, given all circumstances, right? They only gave up the 21 points. The last touchdown was spotted by Jeff Wilson. That turnover I should have brought up in the section of the Niners offense. That was a real big play in the game. I didn't bring it up. That was my mistake. But yeah, that play definitely made a massive impact, obviously, on the result. But in regards to the Niners defense, like overall, I can't say they played exceptionally poorly because I thought there were moments in the game, right? It was 21-14. They got a really, really big stop. Niners offense couldn't do much with it. And it was moments in the game where the Niners offense, had opportunities to really take advantage and take control of this game, and they just were never able to. Again, it was a valiant effort by the defense, but I just look at it and I just have to say that ultimately they fell short because of those injuries. And then it was just a bad matchup with Atlanta's run game. Banged up defensive line, banged up linebackers. You have guys coming in and out at safety today. I thought Oren Burks really, really struggled in this game as the 3rd linebacker. I have to go back and watch. I don't know if it's a fair thing to say, but just off watching on TV, like just a pure visual, I thought he struggled. I thought he got run over a couple of times. I thought he missed a couple assignments. I mean, the Mariota 2nd touchdown on the zone read, I'm not sure. Usually, there's a scrap exchange on that's how it's handled with most defenses where the strong side linebacker comes out and takes the quarterback leaking out and you have the cornerback shoot. So Womack shot, but he lost contain. So I don't know what exactly was going on there, but that's typically not how the Niners defend a zone read where they have the cornerback in charge of basically contain on the quarterback and he's the last man and it's one-on-one. That's not a usual thing. We'll see what actually happened on that play, but in my opinion, that was definitely a bust. But Womack's got to make that tackle, and that's where you miss Mosley or Ward because they can bail you out in that kind of a situation because both of them are awesome tacklers. But overall, I thought the Niners defense played okay. 21 points. against an offense, that scores 23 a game, that's played really, really well. It's not a bad performance. And DeMeco Ryans is a hell of a coordinator, and he is just masterful what he does on third downs in terms of just the way he creates pressure, how he creates pressure, the way he disguises how creative it is. He's a fantastic coach. And I think this defense will ultimately bounce back the more they get healthier. It is still maybe the best defense in the NFL. So that's my thought on the 49ers defense. If you're a little late to the show, I did give my thoughts on the Niners offense earlier. Um, and I just basically talked about, just the usual things, the offensive line, Garoppolo, the receivers, of course, the tight ends, everybody got mentioned. Besides, of course, I made the mistake of not mentioning the Jeff Wilson fumble. But that brings us to the topic I think everybody is, oops, my bad. Everybody is most interested in talking about. And I can see it from the comment section. There's a lot of people that are angry after this loss. They're angry at Kyle Shanahan. So let's talk about Kyle Shanahan in this game, right? I look, I know I'm a Kyle Shanahan fan. Maybe I'm biased because of my fandom towards Kyle Shanahan. Whatever it is, I would say that I just I have a hard time really blaming anybody for this loss because of the circumstances with the injuries and just being realistic about the matchup with Atlanta. I mean, I didn't expect the Niners to come in and blow out Atlanta. I thought it would be a really tight game. I did ultimately expect them to win, but what happened in this game was something I saw as a possibility. So I'm not totally shocked by the result of this game. And so therefore, for me, I cannot be so upset at Shanahan when I'm watching bodies go down, injuries happen, and these execution errors where, at the end of the day, Shanahan is a professional and Ray McLeod's a professional. It's not Shanahan's job to make sure Ray McLeod catches that football. He called a great play. It's well executed. Ray McLeod executed the play, but that's on Ray McLeod. He's got to catch the ball. Same thing with Charlie Warner. Both, by the way, amazing throws, fantastic throws from Jimmy Garoppolo. But overall, with Kyle Shanahan, I think there's thoughts about maybe longer term concerns about, what's going on here as with the Niners head coach, right? We're talking about an offense that's struggling, and the operative word, Tommy Huxley, friend of the show, he uses it right there. It's execute. Why can't the Niners offense execute? I don't even know how to answer this question, right? I just keep asking it, but it's confusing to me. And I talked about it a little when I talked about the Niners offense, but now more specific to Kyle Shanahan, here's why it's confusing to me. He's been coaching at the same place for 6 years. A lot of the offensive install, season to season varies, but the core philosophy and concepts of the offense remain the same, right? You will never see a Shanahan offense without outside zone. And they'll run outside zone from different looks. They'll maybe dress it up and have different variations of it on different seasons. But the offense will start principally off of that run play, right? And the same thing goes, for some of their core pass concepts like drift and other plays like that, right? Those things exist every year in the Shanahan offense. So there's continuity to his offense, and there's continuity where there's veteran players who have been in this offense for multiple years in a row now, and they've done it together. I don't understand why there seems to be so many issues week to week with execution, right? This growth process that is going on with this offense, I think a lot of us expected it was needed with Trey Lance, but Trey Lance and Shanahan needed to get comfortable. Trey Lance and Shanahan needed to, feel each other out. They needed to understand each other. The rest of the offense needs to get comfortable with Trey Lance. So we understood that week one in the monsoon, why there was execution issues. Then against Seattle, it looked like they were going to turn a corner. Lance got injured. We understood with Garoppolo against Denver, there would be growing pains. Then you pick up on offense a little bit against the Rams, though I think it's inflated by a couple of amazing plays by Deebo Samuel, how good Garoppolo really played in that game and how him and Shanahan were in sync. And Garoppolo plays outstanding versus the Panthers. Shanahan calls a really good game. They run the football really well for the second week in a row. Jeff Wilson looks really good. And everything's looking on the up and up. And then you come into this game, right? Early on a big third down, Garoppolo, they bring a 3-man rush. He just drifts in that pocket. He's got to either step up There's room to run for that first down. It's 3rd and 2. You got to step up and run, or you got to step up. And George Kittle was wide open down the field and ripped that ball for a touchdown. He didn't do either. And he kind of tried to throw like a short arm, sidearm in a tight window to Juwan Jennings with his body drifting away from him. It was a tough throw. He didn't hit it, and he took a hit. He should have never taken a hit on that play, but he took a hit because he was just standing in one spot. And so there was that. Other than that execution error early, I mean, this offense, Garoppolo came out firing, and this offense looked good early. And then in the second half, where did the execution go, right? This rhythm that you had established, you'd played well against Carolina, you had found something against the Rams. It had carried over. Besides that first play on 3rd and 3, Garoppolo had a good rhythm in the first half. The offense had gotten going. It was 14-14. And in the second half, just disappeared, went out of nowhere. They struggled to find a way to run the ball. I don't know what's going to happen with Jeff Wilson. That's 2 fumbles lost in 3 weeks, right? One he lost in Denver, one he lost this week. Who knows? We've seen players get into Shanahan's doghouse for much less. So who knows how Shanahan feels about those Jeff Wilson fumbles and where they'll ultimately lead him. But he's been out and out their best runner. So I can't imagine him being replaced unless Elijah Mitchell comes back. But ultimately with Shanahan, I think there is that long-term concern of this team on a week-to-week basis doesn't seem to have a rhythm or a sense of continuity that we've done this before. We've been there together. We were just in the NFC Championship 3 years ago. We were in the Super Bowl, the way the Chiefs look, like a well-oiled machine. Maybe that's Mahomes. But even I would say a team like Tennessee, right? Tennessee they started off this season slow, but Tennessee has a real identity. They find a rhythm. They become a well-oiled machine in a way. This year it's been a little bit slower. They also lost A.J. Brown, so there was a big adjustment period about that, but they have a great identity on how they want to play. Sometimes with the Niners, I feel like, where is that identity on offense? And it took so long to find it last year. I don't know if that's directly on Shanahan, but here we are talking about Shanahan. And to me, that's where it kind of ultimately falls, because Garoppolo is playing more or less fine, right? With the weapons they have and how well Garoppolo is throwing the ball and the number of plays he is making, it should be enough to score more than 14 points on offense, especially with what a good play caller Shanahan is. And again, it's really hard for me to make blanket statements that it's this person, that person, especially without going back and watching the film. So I don't want to go too far and say it's a Shanahan issue, it's a Garoppolo issue, because both guys ultimately I don't think are the most direct ones to blame for this loss. Definitely not Garoppolo, but I don't get it with this offensive execution, and ultimately we'll have to find out. Because there's some big games coming up, right? You get the Rams again. I don't think they're that good. They should blow them out, but it's still the Rams. You get the Chiefs next week. Mahomes and Andy Reid are going to be coming with, especially after losing a heartbreaker to the Bills, first time, rare time Mahomes getting an opportunity at the end of the game and he didn't get the job done. So the Niners are going to have to figure this out fast. And I think the Chiefs defense is also one that's going to give them trouble, right? We saw the adjustment Spags makes early. The Bills were able to run the ball today, and we saw Spags was kind of able to stop that in the second half. And we know the kind of pressure their front creates. Chris Jones is maybe the best defensive player in the NFL outside of, Micah Parsons, Aaron Donald. It's Chris Jones is near that conversation. He is having an outstanding season. And so it's going to be a massive test next week. And so the Niners definitely have the work cut out for them. But those are my thoughts on the game. I did have a section where I did want to talk about the injuries, but as I was talking through this, I decided I don't really want to talk about the injuries again. It's really a sore subject. I'm kind of tired of talking about it. It's really sad. I can never really offer a solution or anything insightful to say other than the fact that I'm heartbroken for every single player that gets injured, especially the ones that, have opportunities to change their career in terms of making life-changing money. It's disappointing to watch them get hurt, especially because how much they're putting on the line and how much of themselves they're putting out there for this. And so it's definitely heartbreaking to watch these big time players get hurt. And then it's also just disappointing because every week it feels like For whatever reason, we can say it's the turf, but two teams played on the turf. Atlanta's secondary got banged up, but it didn't feel like their guys were going in and out the way Niners players were. I don't have an answer at this point for it. It's just a really sad topic, so I don't want to really beat the dead horse with it. But I do want to take some time, and I know it's already, about 15 minutes, 20 minutes into the Sunday night game. But I do want to take, some time to answer some of your questions and just get some of your thoughts on the game. One of my favorite parts always of doing these kinds of shows is the interaction with you guys, what your thoughts are. So just throw in what your thoughts are from the game in the chat, and I'd love to just get to it and interact. And if you have any questions, same thing. But Johnny Alanes says it's time to move on from Shanahan. He's proven that he cannot be a head coach and an offensive coordinator. Every week, it's either one or the other. Breaking down, excuse me, I said Alanes. It's Alanis. Pardon me for the mispronunciation, but I disagree with you. I don't know why. I don't think it's really the time to talk about it. We're 6 games in. The Niners still 3-3. They're still first in the NFC West. There's a good chance they're going to make the playoffs still this year and go far. So talking about firing Shanahan, I don't think is really that time, especially for the masterful coaching job he pulled off last year. And, let's just go down the list of starters that we thought would be starting for this team in September that are no longer starting, right? The quarterback, Trey Lance, is injured. Elijah Mitchell is injured. Trent Williams is injured. Mike McGlinchey's injured. Javon Kinlaw is injured. Eric Armstead's injured. Nick Bosa's injured. Azeez Al-Shaair is injured. Jimmy Ward's injured. That's 9 starters. Mooney Ward's injured. That's 10. Emmanuel Mosley. So you're talking about 11 starters that are hurt, and you're going on the road against a team that you don't particularly match up well due to health. It's a tough spot. I don't see any reason why there needs to be, firing Shanahan. I think he's doing a fine job. I think you definitely always expect more because you know how good he can be. But right now, I don't know if there's any reason to, fire anybody or, turn on the church bells or, fire the alarms and, and tell everybody that, Shanahan needs to go. Because I don't know what at this point it's not really a bad situation that the Niners are in. They're 3-3. And what they did last year, what he pulled off last year was phenomenal. I would say there's no reason to talk about firing him now. But it eventually, if the Niners keep losing, I don't know if the conversation goes there this year, but it will eventually go towards there. So, yeah. Randall Riley says that list is ridiculously long. Yeah, I think somebody tweeted out an image of the Niners starter or players that are injured. And if you go look at the defensive players that are injured, it's a top 5 defense on just guys that are injured. When you talk about Bosa and Al-Shaair and Ward and Emmanuel Mosley, Jason Verrett, it's an all-star defense of players that are injured. Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw. It sucks, man. Yeah. I mean, that's likely based on now, though I would say I'm still not totally sold on the Giants, though I do think there's a Cinderella magic to them. I'm definitely not a big Minnesota Vikings guy. I'm not really high on what's going on over there, though I know they're 5-1 and they keep winning and they deserve their props. But I would say a lot can happen. I think there's a lot that can happen in the NFC. I don't think it's necessary to go there right now. Can we talk about the NFL and their spotters? Took Debo off the field during a key drive, Ray off the field, Demo off the field. Yeah, I saw that. Come on Friday, I did see that. I saw Debo was very, very upset that he was taken off the field. And it's frustrating, but at the same time, I understand the NFL has to be more serious about their player safety. And if it means, sometimes taking a player who's not concussed and doing that check, I think it's worth it in the grand scheme of things. the player's health definitely comes before anything and everything. And ultimately, I do think that not having Debo on that field for one play did not really affect what happened in this football game. Matthew Mears says, I would bring in Ken Dorsey this offseason in a heartbeat. And okay, I'm not, I understand why people say stuff like this. And I understand the Ken Dorsey idea, especially because he was the Bills quarterback coach. And you think that, he would have maybe a great plan to work with Trey Lance. But I also would like to give the guy who drafted Trey Lance a chance to implement the plan he had for him. And then the one thing I will say about Ken Dorsey, and I understand, Matthew, that you are upset, but the weird thing about the NFL, and I've talked about this before with jobs, is that the previous job you have, you don't really display the skills needed to show that you are ready for the next job, right? And Ken Dorsey has shown he's a good play caller so far, and he's doing a good job calling the Bills offense. Though I would argue they have, maybe the best quarterback in the NFL and a top 3 or 4 receiver in the NFL in Stephon Diggs. So they're a well-oiled machine already, but Dorsey's doing a terrific job, and he's finding ways to run the ball, maybe a little bit better than Daboll did in Buffalo. But that doesn't mean that, Dorsey knows how to manage the team. He knows how to set up a practice schedule. He knows how to hire a staff. He knows how to come up with a game plan that, follows complementary football, and he knows how to win with his defense. He knows how to win with his special teams. He knows how to manage the clock, manage the game, manage the team schedule, manage different players' bodies, do all of these things. The head coach is in charge of all of these things. And Dorsey doesn't do any of those things as an offensive coordinator. And so I understand saying, well, I would hire Ken Dorsey in a heartbeat. But if you believe Shanahan has XYZ problems, you don't know that a different offensive coordinator and play caller is not going to have those problems as well. So I don't really enjoy entertaining the topic because I don't think Shanahan should be anywhere near the hot seat right now or anything of the sort. But I just wanted to talk about the fact that I don't think just because a guy's a very good play caller now that, he's going to be a great head coach or any of those type of things are a guarantee. Block Caesar asks, thoughts on Jimmy's play today? I thought he played well. The early miss to Kittle, right? That was just a bad play all around. But after that, he found a really good rhythm. Shanahan had a really good rhythm. They had a nice screen game going. The screen game was terrific. He had a couple of nice throws to Brandon Ayuk. Of course, the 2 drops, those were great throws. And then the throw to Brandon Ayuk on the Jake Brendel hold, that was also a fantastic throw. I thought he played well. The 2 interceptions, the first one I talked about, it didn't really make a difference and impact on the game. It was a bad throw, but ultimately it didn't affect the result. I don't really care about it. The second one was a bad play, but I would say that's the one play he really, really put the ball in harm's way. It got picked off. But otherwise, I thought he played fine enough to win this game for sure. Brandon Vincent says, did you find it funny that you talked about Kittle 2 weeks ago and they featured him, and now Ayuk last week, this week, and he was a standout today? I wish. I wish I could find this funny and think that, I'm saying something that's meaning something. I think a lot of people talked about George Kittle. Obviously, one of the best tight ends in the NFL not having production is going to be a topic for anyone and everyone. So I think that they wanted to feature him for that. And then in regards to Ayuk, I think he's been due for a little while to have a game like this. We all know how talented he is. It was just about finally seeing that production, manifest on the field. It's not just about, him beating a guy, but it's about him beating a guy right there within the offense on time for Jimmy to see and for it to be set up. And he had an awesome game today. And I hope that it carries over and he plays like this and he plays with the force and toughness that he played with, because he's always tough. He plays with toughness, but when he's, engaged and, making an impact on the game and running after the catch the way he ran after the catch in this game, Niners offense becomes very hard on paper to stop because of how good Kittle and Debo are. Excuse me. Underscore 187 underscore says, question, is it Jimmy G's job to block catch passes, excuse me, and I cannot talk. Sorry about that. And call plays. I I just thought it was funny, so I just put it up there. I love the Jimmy dichotomy. I love that there's people that come in here and everybody's defending Jimmy, and then I also love that there are people that say nobody likes Jimmy. Um, he's just kind of that perfect polarizing character, right? And as much as I love the objectivity and the facts and the stats and the film and the scheme surrounding football, I also really like the story. And man, no matter what, Jimmy G's a damn good story every week. And he makes watching the 49ers and following it exhausting, but he also makes it entertaining and fun no matter what. Moeed says CMC Brian Burns trade can save the season. I mean, maybe, yeah, probably. But what are you going to give up to get him? I don't know that it makes that much sense. I think ideally, of course, you would love to get him. CMC is still one of the best running backs in the NFL, and Burns is a blue chip top 10 pass rusher in the NFL that's 24 years old. So, yeah, like any day you would love to get him. And yeah, they would make the Niners way better. I don't know if saving the season is really necessary. They're the best team in the NFC West, right? They're in the playoff race. Like the season is nowhere near done that it needs to be saved. The Niners are still exactly where they need to be. I mean, you wish they weren't 3-3, 3-2 in the NFC, losing both games to Chicago and Atlanta, but circumstance fell that way. And they didn't play well enough either. But yeah, I don't think the season needs saving, but yeah, definitely awesome players. Yeah, I mentioned that as well. Atlanta didn't have a single healthy DB after the third quarter. The Crow, appreciate your donation. By the way, Maweed, you as well. Thank you so much. Appreciate the donation. Asks, who can we talk to behind the scenes for injuries? Do you have any contacts? Is it a lack of stretching, lack of sleep? Are they not keeping themselves warm on the sidelines? First of all, I appreciate the donation and I appreciate these questions. I have the same exact questions. I will do my best to try and reach out to anybody I know to just ask and try to inquire and see if I can maybe get some more information on this. It's obviously a difficult thing to ask people about because obviously, one, the injuries are sensitive. Two, there might not be a correct answer here. But with the Niners, it seems to be just a theme of unluckiness. And it might just be unluckiness, but at this point, it just happens year after year. I think a lot of us are getting so frustrated and disappointed watching these really, really good players get hurt and seeing how it affects the Niners season. I know that, the Niners obviously, whether it's Shanahan, John Lynch, their organization, like these guys getting injured is everything to all of them in their careers. So I'm sure they're trying to understand and figure out why this is happening and how to find a solution. It's unfortunate that they've been unable to find a solution. And every team gets hurt, and I always say that, but it's gone to a little bit of an extreme with the 49ers where we're seeing it year after year. They're the most injured team in the NFL, and we're seeing star player after star player go down. And so I wish I could answer your question. I really do. I don't know anything. I don't have the information, and I hope someone can answer it or they can rectify it because it sucks. It sucks watching these guys get hurt. Yeah. Randall Riley says Tampa lost to the Steelers, Jets beat Green Bay. The NFL has a little bit of a changing of the guard happening as we speak. And we're also just seeing, there was more parity with the practice schedules, the reduction of who's playing in preseason, all of that. We're seeing that it's taking teams some time to get started early, and that's allowing bad teams to win early and good teams. I don't think we have a single winless team in the NFL anymore, which, speaks to the parity that exists right now. Amin the Dream, by the way, Amin the Dream, everybody knows it. The kid 49ers YouTube prodigy. Make sure you're subscribed to him. But he says, hypothetically, if the 49ers don't make the playoffs and the defense finishes top 5 in the league and D'Amico getting head coach offers, would you fire Kyle, and hire D'Amico? No. Why would I do that? And it's no disrespect to Amin. He's asking a great question, and I've seen a lot of people bring this up, but we've seen D'Amico Ryan succeed as a defensive coordinator with Kyle Shanahan as his head coach. That doesn't mean D'Amico Ryans is going to be a great head coach. It does not. And it's what I talked about in that previous question in regards to Ken Dorsey. And Shanahan has shown he can manage all of that. The 49ers are a well run organization. They've drafted very well, they have a great organizational process. I mean, you go look at their recent draft picks outside of 2017. They've done a very good job. There's more hits than misses, which if you're batting above 50%, you're killing it in the NFL draft. Shanahan has been able to install a scheme, has been able to install a philosophy. He's gotten buy-in from players. He's been able to have a standard and an organizational structure. All those things I think you would be hard pressed to replace. I don't know. D'Amico Ryans is a phenomenal defensive coordinator, brilliant defensive coordinator, really brilliant. I don't think that means necessarily that he is, would be a fantastic head coach or that he would be a better head coach than Shanahan, especially when he's now the second defensive coordinator we've seen brilliant under Shanahan. And, some of Shanahan's friends, like Chris Sims, say that Shanahan knows defense as well as any defensive coordinator in the NFL and can call defenses. Sometimes I wonder how much input he has in terms of creating that complementary game plan and, helping out, ensuring that the defense is doing all the right things. Yeah. Longtime Niner fan. I was gonna bring this up actually tomorrow or during the week when I did a show. I think he's the one guy in Carolina that's possible to get, and I think he's the one game changer. He's still as fast as anything. He can get down the field, stretch the field vertically. The Niners have Danny Gray, but he's still a rookie. McLeod is not really a deep speed guy, though. He got behind the defense today and, of course, dropped that dime from Jimmy Garoppolo. But he's the one guy I would say that, yes, 6th or 7th round pick, I think is possibly something you could trade to get him for sure, because it looks like he could be on the outs in Carolina. My bad. I'm so behind on all these questions, so I'm just trying to move a little bit ahead. But I appreciate every one of you in here. I know the Sunday night game is going on, and I'm glad that you guys are in here and not or. But I totally understand. I really appreciate you. Excuse me for being in here, um, because yeah, the Sunday night game is on. That was extremely clunky. Apologies. But Last Second Sports, the man, Jesse Naylor. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're not subscribed to Last Second Sports, I don't know what you're doing, but he says defense held to 21 with all injuries. Offensive unit is atrocious somehow with all that talent and offensive head coach. Kind of sums it up. The offense needs to play better. They had a good game in terms of yards. Scoring 14 points on the road against that defense is somewhat unacceptable. This game felt a lot like the Colt McCoy game to me in terms of how the offense played last year. In that game, Garoppolo threw for 300 yards. This game, he threw for 296. That game, he threw for 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, or 1 pick. This game, he was 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, where the offense and the weapons kind of played fine. Kittle, Ayuk, Debo all had like decent stats, but, they lost the game pretty comfortably, and it just didn't feel right. This game kind of felt like that. That was a turning point in the Niners season last year. Is this a turning point again? We will see, because they got their work cut out for them on who they're playing next week. But Jesse's definitely right. The offense has to be better. Caleb Austin says, do I think the Niners are the best team in the NFC West? Absolutely, I do. At this point, I'm not even 100% sure how good the Niners are, just because of how injured they are. And I don't know the severity of some of these injuries. But I don't think the Rams are very good. Arizona's an absolute mess. And I think Seattle, and with Pete Carroll coaching this type of underdog team with a lot of young guys that plays high energy and believes, Tariq Woolen's a terrific rookie he's got there. The 2 rookie tackles, Cross and Lucas, are playing terrific. Gino's playing great. I think Pete Carroll is dangerous, but that Seahawks team is not a match for this Niners team for sure. Underscore 187 underscore says drop a like. Yes, everybody, please drop a like, share, subscribe. I appreciate all of your support, but the like and the subscribe goes a long way with the YouTube algorithm. Any Mooney updates? No, I didn't hear any. I didn't see anything new other than the him hurting his groin. Scotty Dippin. I like the name. Is that your actual name or is that just parody name for Scotty Pippen? But he said all my excitement went out the window with the Trey Lance injury. While watching the game, all I could think of was the Atlanta offense looks like what the Trey Lance offense would look like. This is an awesome point. Awesome point, right? Like Mariota is not as gifted a quarterback as Trey Lance. Mariota, I think, is a more explosive runner. And actually, Mariota's always been a more physical runner as well than I've given him credit for. And he's got maybe a little more juice than Trey Lance. But as a thrower, Mariota, isn't the greatest thrower. And Lance is, a good thrower. He's obviously still working and getting better at his accuracy, but it's certainly a little better than Mariota. And then, of course, Mariota is maybe a little more suited for a collegey offense, while Lance has some more pro style qualities to him because of the offense he executed at North Dakota State. But I think this is an awesome point because of the efficiency of the offense looked how the Niners offense would look with Trey Lance, right? I brought up the differences at quarterback. There are those differences. The Niners running backs are also a little more explosive. Atlanta's got a little more size and physicality with who ran the ball between Algier and Huntley. But the quality in terms of the efficiency of staying in third and short, allowing the run game to be a possibility on third down by staying in third and short, the efficiency of moving the quarterback, running with the quarterback, having this diverse run game, and then an efficient pass game, taking advantages of one-on-ones down the field, a few RPOs, a play action pass game. Yeah, I think this is an awesome point. And I think Atlanta's offense is good, and they don't have anywhere near the talent the Niners offense does. And yeah, I think it is a good reason to be excited, even though it's week 5 of this year and Trey Lance only comes back next year. And there's a lot to be excited about Niners season this year. There's also a lot to be excited about for Trey Lance too when he comes back. Yeah, Scotty Dippin said exactly. You didn't have to. I appreciate the second donation too. That's really kind of you. But exactly, there would be a few more deep shots. He's just more gifted than Mariota. And I know Mariota was the second pick in the draft and Trey Lance was third, but I don't I know Mariota was good in Oregon too, but I personally was not convinced ever with Mariota. So yeah. G Money says I'm the biggest Jimmy hater, but I think he played good today. He had a nice throws. Exactly. He played well. He played good enough to win. When he plays like this, you usually hope you play good enough around him to win. And unfortunately, he is not the kind of quarterback where when he plays good, he can just elevate everything and make it happen on a given Sunday. He's not that player. But when he plays like this, usually you got to play good enough around him to win. And unfortunately, the Niners didn't do that today. And then, yes, of course, there were some great throws that were dropped, the one to McLeod and Warner specifically. But yeah, I've been going on for about 50 minutes. I appreciate all of you who tuned in. I know the Sunday night game is going on right now, so I appreciate all of you for tuning in even more. But I do want to go and watch that game, and I do need to I would like to go watch, the rest of that game. So I do need to call the stream right here. But again, I appreciate all of you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. I will be back tomorrow, but maybe in a different format. Stay tuned. I have a new thing coming on Mondays. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Just stay tuned for my Twitter. and see what's coming. But I think you guys will enjoy what's coming on Mondays. And then this week, most likely, I will stream one day here with Larry Krueger and then one day on Larry Krueger's channel. Just keep an eye on the YouTube community tab as well as my Twitter. But thank you, everybody, for joining. Please subscribe, share, put down in the comments below, of course, any feedback you have for me, your thoughts on the Niners loss, and what's one thing you would like the Niners to do differently, or what's one thing you think the Niners need to do to beat the Chiefs. And I'll see you all next time. Thank you.